The apartment was silent when Derek stumbled in at 3:12 a.m., still smelling faintly of hotel cologne and someone else's perfume. Manhattan's skyline glowed cold and distant behind him as he dropped his keys onto the marble counter, expecting the usual darkness and the usual wife who pretended not to notice where he'd been. But tonight wasn't usual. Tonight, something waited for him. A bouquet of white lilies sat in the center of the kitchen island, arranged too perfectly, wrapped with a silver ribbon that shimmered under the soft light. Derek froze. Those weren't the cheap grocery flowers he occasionally grabbed out of guilt. These were luxury lilies, the kind found in boutique shops on Fifth Avenue. And taped to the ribbon was a small handwritten card. His jaw clenched. Who would send flowers to his wife at this hour? Who even knew she was awake? He snatched the card before he saw her. Maddie? His voice cracked in a way he didn't intend. She stood in the hallway, one hand bracing the small of her back, the other resting over her 5-month belly. Her face looked pale, exhausted not from sleep, but from holding herself together. She had been awake for hours. Derek held up the bouquet accusingly. Who sent these? Her brows knitted. What are you talking about? I didn't order anything. Don't lie to me. His voice dropped low, sharp. You expect me to believe some man sends you expensive flowers in the middle of the night? Her breath caught. She hadn't even touched the flowers. She didn't know the card. She didn't know anything except that the man accusing her still had lipstick smudged on his collar. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the faint thud of her baby kicking. It's not what you think, she whispered. But Derek stepped closer, his eyes burning with the kind of anger only guilt could fuel. And as he crushed the card in his fist, Maddie realized he hadn't even asked the most important question. Why the flowers had arrived addressed to her mother's name, not hers. Long before the lilies appeared on the counter, the marriage had already begun to rot beneath its polished surface. Maddie used to believe that love, real love, could survive the noise of Manhattan, the pressure of careers, even the shifting rhythm of life. But she had underestimated what silence could do. The kind of silence that settles between two people who used to talk about everything, yet now spoke only in half sentences and careful nods. Derek had not always been a stranger to her. 5 years ago, he had been the man who waited outside her office with a cup of peppermint tea, who listened to her talk about design projects for hours, who kissed her temple as if she were made of something precious. Now the only thing he cared about kissing was his reflection, polished shoes, tailored suits, and the image of a man climbing the corporate ladder faster than anyone else. His excuses began subtly. Late meetings, last-minute business dinners, weekends, with clients. Maddie tried to be understanding. She was carrying their first child, and she wanted to believe the man she chose would choose her back. But the more she tried to reach him, the further he drifted. It was around her 4th month of pregnancy that she first smelled the unfamiliar perfume on his collar, something floral, expensive, nothing like the simple scents she wore. When she asked about it gently, Derek's eyes hardened. You're imagining things, Maddie. Pregnancy hormones. Don't start. That was the first time she felt herself shrink. Not because of his words, but because of the coldness behind them, an ice she didn't recognize. She convinced herself to push through. They had a baby on the way. Families stayed together. That's what she had always believed. It was the belief her mother had raised her with before passing, leaving Maddie more alone than she dared admit. But then came the financial secrecy. Passwords changed, bank statements missing. Derek had always handled the money, but now even harmless questions triggered his anger. You don't need to worry about finances. Focus on the baby, he would say, with a tone that made it clear he was dismissing her, not reassuring her. She should have seen it then, the way he flinched when she reached for his phone, the way he stepped out onto the balcony to take calls in hushed tones. But love makes even smart women naive. And Maddie was exhausted, juggling her job, her pregnancy, and her loneliness. Still, she kept hoping he would return to her. Hoping the man she married was still in there somewhere. But deep inside, she felt it. The moment a marriage begins to die is not loud. It's quiet, like a door closing softly, almost politely, behind the life you thought you had. When Cole Harrington showed up at their apartment door the next morning, Maddie thought exhaustion was finally making her hallucinate. She hadn't seen him in nearly 7 years, not since her wedding day, when he shook Derek's hand, hugged her too tightly, and disappeared from her life without explanation. Back then, she thought he simply drifted away, the way people sometimes do as adulthood scatters everyone in different directions. She never imagined he had left for a reason. "Madeline?" he asked softly, voice careful, as if speaking too loudly might cause her to break. Derek stiffened immediately. His whole posture changed, shoulders tensed, jaw tightened, eyes hardening in that defensive way he had when cornered. "What the hell are you doing here?" Derek growled. Cole ignored him. His gaze stayed on Maddie, full of something she couldn't identify, concern, maybe recognition, maybe sorrow. In his hand was a thin envelope, the kind hospitals used for sensitive documents. "I'm here because of this," Cole said, holding it out. "It arrived at my office by mistake. Your mother's name was on the sender line." The room froze. Maddie felt the ground tilt under her feet. Her mother had been gone for almost a year. She hadn't expected anything, no letters, no final messages. Just the quiet emptiness grief leaves behind. She reached for the envelope, but her hands trembled too much to hold it steady. Cole gently placed his hand over hers to support it. Derek noticed and snapped. "Don't touch my wife," he barked, stepping forward. "And don't pretend you're some hero. You cut me off years ago. Don't act like we're friends now." Cole finally looked at him. Really looked, and the temperature in the room dropped. "We stopped being friends," Cole said calmly, "when I learned who you really were." A flicker of something, fear, irritation, guilt, passed across Derek's features before he masked it again. Maddie noticed. For the first time, she wondered what else Derek had been hiding long before the affair. Cole turned back to her, voice softening. "Maddie, I'm sorry to show up like this. I would have called, but I wasn't sure you'd pick up, and I didn't want this falling into the wrong hands." Her throat tightened. "What's in it?" Cole hesitated. "That's something you should read in private." But Derek reached for the envelope, grabbing her arm. "Anything meant for this household goes through me." And in that moment, Maddie realized Cole wasn't the only one who had discovered something about Derek. Maddie stood frozen, the envelope trembling lightly in her hands. It felt heavier than paper should, like it carried the weight of every answer she wasn't ready to face. Derek hovered beside her, jaw tight, fingers twitching with impatience. Cole stood across from them, silent but watchful, like a man waiting for a truth he already knew would hurt. "I'm opening it," Maddie whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Derek scoffed. "Finally." But when she slipped a finger under the seal, a strange calm washed over her. Inside were two items, a short, handwritten note from the hospital chaplain, and a second envelope with her mother's writing on it. Her breath hitched. She hadn't seen her mother's handwriting since the funeral. Seeing it now felt like the echo of a voice calling her back from a place she thought she'd buried. She unfolded the chaplain's note first. "Your mother arranged for this to be delivered to you, should certain circumstances arise. She insisted it was important for your future safety." Safety? The word chilled her. Derek snatched the first paper out of her hand. "What circumstances? What safety?" "Derek, stop." She pulled the second envelope protectively to her chest. But he was already pacing, muttering under his breath, throwing glances at Cole like he expected him to attack. Cole stepped forward slightly, voice steady. "She deserves to read her mother's words without interference." "Oh, spare me," Derek barked. "You don't get to waltz in here, and—" "Derek," Maddie's voice cracked, like a whip, sharp, unexpected, enough to silence both men. "Please, just stop." She took a breath, then opened her mother's envelope. The handwriting wavered, written by a woman who knew her time was running out. "My sweet girl," it began. "If you are reading this, it means the truth has found its way to you sooner than I hoped." Maddie felt her knees weaken. "I never told you everything about your adoption. I wanted you to have a normal life, free from the chaos of the people who once surrounded us. But circumstances have changed. The land in New Jersey is legally yours, and it is worth far more than you know. Protect it. Protect yourself." Her vision blurred. "Land? What land? What value?" She read the final line twice. "Be careful whom you trust." Her eyes lifted slowly to the two men in the room. One she had married, and one who had returned out of nowhere. And suddenly Maddie understood her mother hadn't written those words by accident. The apartment felt smaller with every passing second, as if the walls themselves were leaning in to witness the slow collapse of Maddie's world. She clutched her mother's letter while Derek snatched the chaplain's note again, reading it as if he could force a different meaning out of the ink. His agitation grew with each breath. "So now your dead mother sends you property?" Derek scoffed, waving the paper carelessly. "Land? Safety? What is this, some dramatic mystery?" But Maddie didn't hear him. Her mind was already racing somewhere else, pulling threads together she never had the courage to tug before. Her mother's warning, Derek's sudden interest, his secrecy, his changed passwords, those business trips that didn't add up, the missing bank statements. Her pulse quickened. "Where's the mail from this week? The bank envelopes?" Derek stiffened. "I threw out junk." "Why do you care?" "That wasn't junk," she whispered. "Those were our joint statements." A muscle in Derek's jaw twitched. Not a good sign. She stepped away from him, instinctively placing a protective hand over her belly. Cole noticed. "Derek," he said slowly, "you might want to think about what you're saying before this goes any further." Derek spun around. "You don't get to talk here. You shouldn't even be in this apartment. You don't know anything about... I know you've been draining her accounts." Silence slammed into the room. Derek's eyes widened, then narrowed into a glare filled with venom. "You've been spying on me?" Cole didn't flinch. "I warned you years ago to stop playing with fire. You didn't listen." Maddie felt the air thicken. "What accounts?" She turned to Derek, her voice trembling. "What did you do?" For a moment, Derek said nothing. Then his expression shifted, hardening, sharpening, settling into something colder than she had ever seen. "You're pregnant, not stupid," he snapped. "Figure it out." Her stomach dropped. And suddenly, everything clicked. The late-night calls, the hotel receipts, the changed passwords, the sudden tension whenever money came up. Derek wasn't just cheating, he was preparing to leave her with nothing. "You are going to divorce me," she whispered, "and take everything." He didn't deny it. Cole stepped closer to her, his voice steady. "Maddie, there's more you need to know. Derek hasn't just been lying to you, he's been lying to his company, and someone has started investigating." Derek's face drained of color. Maddie stared at him, horror creeping into her chest like ice. Because now she understood. The lilies weren't the only thing that had arrived early, so had the truth. Maddie needed air, real air, not the kind that felt thick with betrayal and accusation. She grabbed her coat with shaking hands and stepped into the hallway, desperate to escape the suffocating tension. Cole followed quietly, giving her space but not letting her walk out alone. Derek didn't follow at all. He just shouted something about unfinished conversations, but his voice faded as the elevator doors slid shut. When they reached the street, the cool morning wind brushed against her skin, a sharp contrast to the panic climbing her throat. She braced herself on a nearby railing, her breath unsteady. Cole stood a few feet away, giving her room but watching her carefully. "You shouldn't be alone right now," he said softly. "I don't even know what's happening anymore," she whispered. "My marriage, my money, my baby, and now my mother left me something I never even knew existed." He stepped closer, slow and gentle, as if approaching a wounded animal. "That property in New Jersey, your mother didn't just leave it for sentiment. Developers have been circling it for years. It's worth millions, Maddie. Derek knows that." Her head snapped up. "Millions?" Cole nodded. "And that's why he's been acting the way he has. He's been trying to secure control before you learned the truth." She felt cold. "How do you know all this?" He hesitated. "Because someone on his team reached out to me last month. They knew Derek and I used to be friends. They were worried about where the money was going. And when your name came up..." He shook his head. "I couldn't ignore it." She felt dizzy again, one hand instinctively sliding to her belly. The baby kicked, almost as if sensing her fear. Cole immediately steadied her. "Hey, sit down." He guided her to a bench near the curb. "Breathe." Slow, deep breaths. She closed her eyes, trying to anchor herself. A taxi honked in the distance. A cyclist sped past. Life moved on around her, uncaring that her world was collapsing. After a long moment, she whispered, "Why are you helping me?" His answer came without hesitation. "Because I should have helped you years ago." Her eyes opened. There was something in his voice, regret, sincerity, a history she didn't understand. Before she could ask, her phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. "You're in danger. Leave the apartment now." Her blood ran cold. She turned to Cole, voice trembling. Someone knows. And then, the second message appeared, this one even worse. He's not the only one watching you. The warning messages still echoed in Maddie's mind long after she and Cole left the bench. Whoever sent them knew too much, knew where she lived, what she was dealing with, and worst of all, that someone was watching her. But Derek wasn't thinking about any of that. He was too busy parading his new life across Manhattan. Later that evening, while Maddie stayed in a quiet hotel room Cole arranged for her safety, Derek strutted into a high-profile networking event on Park Avenue. Photos hit social media within minutes. Derek in a tailored navy suit, smiling wide, a champagne flute in his hand. And on his arm, a woman no older than 26, wearing a dress that clung too tightly to be mistaken for professionalism. Maddie stared at the photos on her phone, her breath catching painfully. It didn't matter that she already knew he was cheating. Seeing it made it real. Seeing him look proud made it cruel. Cole set a cup of herbal tea beside her. You shouldn't look at those. I was pregnant with his child, she whispered. And he's out there acting like he's single, acting like I never mattered. Cole sat across from her, leaning forward. You mattered to him once, but he stopped deserving you a long time ago. She swallowed hard, blinking away tears. How did I miss it? How did I not see who he really was? Because you loved him, Cole said quietly, and love makes people forgive things they shouldn't. Her phone buzzed again, another message from the unknown number. You need to check his work history. Start with last quarter. Her heart pounded. Cole, is this connected to his company? He hesitated. His firm has been under quiet scrutiny for months. Internal audits, missing funds, deals that don't add up. If the investigation becomes public, he'll drag down anyone linked to him, including you. Maddie pressed a hand to her belly. My baby can't be part of this. He won't be, Cole said firmly. I promise. But their fragile moment was shattered by a sudden knock at the door. Maddie flinched, fear shooting through her. Cole stood immediately. Stay here. He opened the door cautiously. A hotel staff member stood there, holding a small black box. For Mrs. Rowe, he said. Cole narrowed his eyes. Who delivered this? The staff member shrugged. No name, just instructions to give it directly to her. Cole brought the box to Maddie, his expression dark. Inside was a single item, Derek's wedding ring, and beneath it, a note. He's not coming home tonight, but someone else will. Maddie felt the blood drain from her face, because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a warning, and a threat. Maddie stared at Derek's wedding ring lying inside the black velvet box, her pulse thudding in her ears. Someone had delivered it on purpose. Someone wanted her to know he wasn't just unfaithful, he was gone, publicly and proudly. Cole closed the box with a controlled calm that didn't match the tension in his jaw. This isn't from Derek, he said. He's too arrogant to send a message like this. Someone else is trying to scare you. She swallowed hard. But why me? Why now? Before Cole could answer, her phone pinged again. A new text from the unknown number. Meet me tomorrow. I know what Derek did and who he did it with. Attached was a location pin. A cafe in the Lower East Side. Cole read over her shoulder. You're not going alone. I need answers, she whispered. And you'll get them, he said, steadying her with a hand on her shoulder. But not without protection. The next morning, the city felt colder. Even the sunlight across the buildings looked sharp, like shattered glass. Maddie's baby kicked softly as if sensing her nerves. She placed a hand over her stomach. It's gonna be okay, she murmured, though she wasn't sure she believed it. At the cafe, a woman already sat in the back corner, her hair tied in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes, clutching a mug with shaking hands. She looked up, relief softening her features. You came, she breathed. Cole hovered protectively behind Maddie. Who are you? My name is Jenna, the woman said. I used to work with Derek. The pause after the word used said everything. Maddie sat slowly. Why contact me? Jenna exhaled shakily. Because I know what he's planning, and I couldn't live with myself if something happened to you or your baby. Maddie felt her stomach twist. What plan? Jenna leaned in, voice trembling. Derek isn't just cheating. He's laundering money through fake development deals. He used your identity to authorize transfers, hundreds of thousands. If the investigation hits, your name goes down with his. Maddie's heart stopped. Cole cursed under his breath. And the woman he's seeing? Maddie whispered. Who is she? Jenna looked around nervously and lowered her voice. She's not just his mistress. She's tied to the man running the investigation. Someone who wants leverage. That's why you got the warnings. They're trying to use you. The room felt like it was spinning. Maddie gripped the table to steady herself. So the ring, the messages, the threats, they weren't about the affair. Jenna shook her head. They were about silencing you. Maddie's breath trembled. And then Jenna said the words that turned fear into raw panic. They want you out of the way before the audit goes public. Maddie could barely breathe by the time she and Cole left the cafe. Jenna's warning replayed in her mind like a nightmare stuck on repeat. They want you out of the way. Every step she took felt heavier, as though danger lurked behind every passing cab, every stranger's glance. Cole kept a steady pace beside her, one hand hovering near her back, protective without crowding. You're shaking, he murmured. I'm pregnant, she whispered, voice cracking, and apparently tied to a crime I didn't know existed. Derek used my name, my identity, my life. How do I even fight that? Cole stopped walking and turned to her, his eyes fierce but gentle. You're not fighting alone. I won't let anything happen to you. Something in his tone, quiet, unyielding, made her chest tighten. Not fear, relief, the kind she hadn't felt in years. They reached the boutique hotel Cole owned, where he guided her through a private elevator that required a keycard. The doors closed with a soft hiss, sealing out the world. She leaned against the wall, exhaustion sinking into her bones. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would Derek risk everything? Why drag me into it? Cole's jaw flexed. Because he thought you'd never question him. You were the safest name to use. Clean, trustworthy, invisible to his world. He paused. He counted on you loving him too much to notice. The words stung because they were true. Inside the suite, Cole made her sit while he brought her water and a small bowl of fruit. She didn't realize how hungry she was until the first bite. Pregnancy demanded strength she didn't always have. Cole sat across from her. Jenna's information is real. I checked some of it weeks ago. I just didn't know how deep Derek's involvement went. And the mistress? Maddie asked softly. She's not just a mistress. Cole's voice darkened. She's the niece of the investigator overseeing Derek's division. If Derek goes down, she gets a promotion and leverage. It's a dirty alliance. Maddie's heart dropped. Derek hadn't just betrayed her emotionally, he'd gambled her entire future. Cole leaned forward. I've already arranged a lawyer for you. A good one. Someone who can separate your name from Derek's mess. Why? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Why are you doing all this for me? He hesitated only a moment. Because I should have protected you back then, he said quietly. And I won't fail you again. A tear slid down her cheek, not from fear this time, but from something she didn't dare name. Then her phone vibrated. A new message. From Derek. We need to talk. Now. Before it's too late. Maddie's breath caught. Because Derek never said please? And this message felt a lot like begging. Maddie stared at Derek's message, her pulse hammering in her throat. We need to talk. Now. Before it's too late. It wasn't concern. It wasn't guilt. It read like a man whose world was collapsing and who planned to use her as the cushion to soften his fall. Cole read it over her shoulder, his expression hardening. He knows something, or someone tipped him off. Her breath trembled. Should I respond? No, Cole said firmly. Not until we know what he wants. But Derek didn't give her a choice. A second message pinged. Maddie, answer me. The investigators know about the transfers. We have to fix this together. Together. The word stung like a slap, as if she hadn't been sleeping next to a stranger, as if she hadn't nearly lost herself trying to make a marriage work that he had abandoned long ago, as if she was the problem he needed to solve. Cole stepped away to answer a call, leaving Maddie alone with her thoughts, though thoughts felt too gentle for the storm crashing through her head. She paced the suite, one hand on her belly, grounding herself. When Cole returned, his face was grim. Your lawyer checked something. Maddie, Derek created a shell account. Her stomach tightened. What kind of account? One using your social security number. Your signature, well, a forged version of it. And the transfers go back months. She pressed a hand to her forehead. How much money? Cole hesitated. If the investigators believe you signed off, It could be federal charges. Her knees weakened. She sank onto the couch, the room spinning. He used me, she whispered. He used his pregnant wife as a shield to protect himself. Cole crouched beside her. You're not going down for his crimes. I won't let that happen. Something inside her cracked, not from pain, but awakening. For the first time, she saw Derek not as the man she married, but as the threat he truly was. I need to know everything, she said quietly. All of it. No more protecting me. Cole nodded. Then there's something else you need to see. He pulled a folder from his briefcase and opened it slowly. Inside were printouts, screenshots, transactions, emails. At the top of one page was a transfer labeled Property Acquisition, Row, Undisclosed Development. And next to the signature line was her name, her forged signature, next to Derek's real one. Maddie felt ice spread through her veins. He was planning to take my inheritance, she breathed, before I even knew it existed. Cole met her eyes. He wasn't just leaving you, Maddie. He was stripping you clean. Her chest tightened, and in that moment, Maddie realized Derek never feared losing her. He feared losing what she didn't know she owned. Derek did not knock when he arrived. He pounded on the suite door as if he owned the building, shouting Maddie's name loud enough for half the hallway to hear. Cole had already stepped between her and the entrance, jaw clenched, shoulders squared. Maddie, open the door. We need to talk. Derek barked, voice frantic, laced with the unmistakable sting of desperation. She stayed seated on the couch, her hands folded over her belly, her heart racing but steady. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of him. She was simply done. Cole opened the door just enough to block Derek's path. You don't belong here. Derek shoved the gap wider, his eyes bloodshot and wild. Stay out of this, Cole. She's my wife. Then you should have treated her like one, Cole replied calmly. Derek scanned the room until his eyes locked onto Maddie. Something in his expression shifted panic, mixed with entitlement. The look of a man who suddenly realized the person he underestimated now held the power to destroy him. Maddie, he said, forcing a softer tone. Sweetheart, you can't listen to him. He's twisting things. The investigators, they misunderstood. I just need you to sign a few forms to clear things up. She let out a slow breath. Forms? Like the ones you forged? Derek froze. I saw them, she continued. The transfers, the signature you copied. You used my name as cover while I was carrying your child. His face contorted. I didn't have a choice. You don't understand how these deals work. No, she cut him off. You don't understand what marriage means, what loyalty means, what decency means. He stepped toward her, voice tightening. If you don't help me, they'll take everything. My job, my accounts, our future. Our? She whispered. There is no our, Derek. His expression snapped, rage flooding back in. So this is about him? He pointed at Cole. You're running off with the guy who couldn't handle competition? The guy who's been obsessed with you since before our wedding? Cole didn't react. Maddie did. This isn't about him, she said, standing slowly. It's about you and what you did. You gambled with my life, my future, my child's future. Derek's voice cracked. I can fix it. Just come home. Sign the paperwork. Stand by me like a wife is supposed to. She felt something inside her harden into truth. Being your wife nearly destroyed me, she said. I'm not signing anything, and I'm not going home. For a moment, Derek looked like he might explode. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced down, and all the color drained from his face. The audit had gone public, and Maddie saw it clearly. Derek wasn't fighting for her. He was fighting for the last scraps of the life collapsing beneath him. The moment Derek's phone lit up with headlines about the audit, something in him snapped. The confident, manipulative man Maddie once knew evaporated, replaced by someone frantic and unraveling. He paced the suite like a cornered animal, muttering curses under his breath, gripping his hair, checking his phone every few seconds as if the news might magically reverse itself. This is bad, he whispered. This is really bad. They're freezing accounts, my accounts. My partners are panicking. I need you to come with me. Now. Maddie remained seated, exhaustion rolling through her. Come with you. Where? To my parents' property, upstate, somewhere no one will look, until this blows over. Her stomach twisted. You want me to hide with you? You're my wife, Derek snapped. And they think you're involved. You signed the transfers. I never signed anything. He flinched at the volume of her voice. It was the first time she realized he wasn't invincible, just loud. It doesn't matter, Derek insisted. They think you did. You need to protect me, us. But there was no us. Not anymore. Maybe there never had been. Cole stepped forward. She's not going anywhere with you. Derek rounded on him. Stay out of this. You've always wanted to ruin me. You think you're better than me? You think you deserve her? Cole didn't blink. I don't need to deserve her. I just need to keep her safe. Something you never cared to do. The room trembled with a long, painful silence. Maddie stood slowly, one hand supporting her lower back, the other resting on her belly. I'm done, she said quietly. I'm done letting you decide my life. I'm done covering for you. I'm done pretending you're the man I married. Derek's voice cracked. Maddie, please. You can't leave me now. Not when everything's falling apart. She looked him in the eyes and saw what she had been denying for years. The emptiness, the selfishness, the fear masquerading as pride. You didn't lose me tonight, she whispered. You lost me a long time ago. Then she walked past him, her steps steady even though her heart shook. Cole grabbed her bag, helped her toward the door. Maddie, Derek called after her, voice breaking, if you walk out now, everything collapses. She paused only once, without turning around. Then maybe it should. As the elevator doors slid shut, the last thing Maddie saw was Derek standing in the hallway. No longer a husband, no longer a protector, but a man watching the only person who could save him finally choose herself. She exhaled. For the first time in years, she could breathe. The morning after she left Derek, Manhattan felt different. Not kinder, not safer, just clearer, as if the city had finally stepped aside and allowed her to see her own life without distortion. From the window of Cole's guest suite, the skyline stretched across the horizon like a promise she had forgotten was hers to claim. She wrapped her hands around a warm cup of ginger tea Cole left for her before heading to an early meeting. A small note rested beside it in neat handwriting. You're stronger than you think. For years, she had been told directly and indirectly that she was fragile, emotional, difficult, that she couldn't handle finances, couldn't handle stress, couldn't handle life without Derek. His voice had seeped into her thoughts until she barely recognized her own. But this morning she remembered something she hadn't felt in months. Capability. She opened her laptop and pulled up the architectural proposal she had put on hold because Derek claimed pregnancy made her unfocused. In truth, he couldn't stand seeing her ambitions grow while his facade cracked. Now, looking at the project with new eyes, Maddie saw brilliance she had overlooked. The clean lines, the sustainable courtyard, the integration of natural elements. This was her vision, not his. She emailed it to the firm director with a simple message. I'm ready to lead this again. Her finger hovered before she hit send. Then she pressed it. A weight lifted from her chest, as if her lungs finally belonged to her again. Around midday, her lawyer called. We've begun the process of separating your name from the fraudulent transfers. The evidence overwhelmingly points to Derek's involvement. Thank you, she whispered. For the first time, I feel safe. You're not just safe, the lawyer replied. You're in a position to fight back. After the call, Maddie stepped onto the balcony. The breeze carried the scent of the city, coffee, car exhaust, faint traces of spring. She placed a hand over her belly. We're going to be okay, she murmured. I promise. As she stood there, her phone buzzed again, this time with a notification she never expected. The architectural firm responded, We'd love to have you present the updated design at next week's industry showcase. Clients will be attending. Her breath caught. This was huge. Not just professionally, but symbolically. The world she had shrunk herself for was opening again. Just then, the suite door clicked open. Cole stepped inside, holding 2 takeout bags and a soft smile. How was your morning? He asked. Maddie turned toward him, standing taller than she had in ages. It was the first morning, she said softly, that felt like it belonged to me. And Cole smiled. Because he had known all along she was capable of rebuilding a life stronger than the one that broke her. News travels fast in Manhattan, especially when it involves a rising scandal and a man who once believed he was untouchable. Within 48 hours of the audit going public, Derek went from celebrated executive to whispered cautionary tale. And for the first time, Maddie wasn't the one living in his shadow. He was living in his own. That afternoon, As Maddie prepared sketches for her industry showcase, her phone buzzed with messages she never expected to receive. Former colleagues, people who once ignored her at corporate events, were suddenly reaching out. Saw the news. If you need a character reference, happy to help. Maddie, I always knew you deserved better. Let me know if you're looking for freelance partnerships. It felt strange, almost surreal. The world had never reached out to her before. They had reached out to Derek through her. Now, they were reaching out to her directly. Cole entered the suite as she reviewed her sketches, setting a bottle of sparkling water beside her. You look focused, he said. I feel steady, she replied, like I'm finally steering my own life. He smiled. That's because you are. But even as she said it, a part of her braced because peace never lasted long around Derek. And right on cue, a call from an unknown number came in. She declined it. Seconds later, another. Then a voicemail. Then another. Cole's expression sharpened. Is it him? She nodded. He won't stop. Cole stepped closer, voice low. He's spiraling, and men like Derek get dangerous when they lose control. She shivered, not out of fear, but recognition. Derek had always believed Maddie existed to support him. Now she was the one standing while he was falling. That imbalance terrified him. Maybe he finally realizes he can't manipulate me anymore, she whispered. Exactly, Cole said, and that's what makes you powerful. Later that evening, she ventured downstairs for fresh air. The hotel lobby buzzed with quiet luxury, soft lighting, muted conversation, the warmth of polished wood. She stepped outside, inhaling the crisp city air. Across the street, a sleek black car idled. Her breath caught. Inside, partially obscured by tinted glass, she recognized the profile. Derek, watching her. Not approaching, not yelling, just watching. A chill ran through her. This wasn't desperation, it wasn't reconciliation. It was surveillance. She returned inside quickly, her heart pounding. Cole met her at the elevator. You okay? She swallowed. He's outside. Cole didn't hesitate. He walked toward the entrance, shoulders squared, fire in his eyes. But when he reached the doors, the car was gone, leaving behind nothing but the echo of a truth Maddie could no longer ignore. Derek wasn't trying to win her back. He was trying to make sure she couldn't move forward without him. The night of the industry showcase arrived with a kind of electric tension Maddie hadn't felt in years. Not anxiety, anticipation. For once, she wasn't attending as someone's wife, someone's accessory, someone's shadow. She was attending as herself. Madeline Rowe, lead architect. A woman with vision. A woman finally stepping into her own light. Cole arrived at her suite just before they left, carrying a small velvet box. Before you panic, he said, lifting one hand. It's not jewelry. It's something practical. Inside was a simple silver pen. For signing contracts, he explained. Your own contracts. Under your own name. Her throat tightened. She had never needed permission to exist, but tonight she felt the difference between being allowed to shine and being encouraged to. The venue was breathtaking, a grand ballroom overlooking the East River, all glass and warm lighting, filled with the hum of New York's elite. Investors, designers, CEOs, journalists, people Derek once wanted to impress. People who now whispered about him like a cautionary tale. When Maddie entered, conversations softened, faces turned, recognition flickered. She wasn't invisible anymore. Cole guided her toward a circle of industry leaders. This is the woman I told you about, he said proudly. The one redesigning the Harrington Courtyard project. Maddie shook hands, exchanged smiles, spoke confidently about her work. For the first time, her voice didn't waver. But as the room buzzed around her, a familiar chill slid down her spine. Across the ballroom, Derek had arrived. He looked nothing like the polished executive she once married. His tie crooked, his eyes red-rimmed, desperation clinging to him like a shadow. And he wasn't alone. His mistress, sleek, smug, trailed behind him. Maddie straightened. Cole noticed immediately. He doesn't belong here, Cole muttered. No, she said softly, but neither does fear. Derek approached, weaving through the crowd with a forced smile. Maddie, he called out, too loudly. We need to talk. Guests turned. Cameras clicked. The moment was becoming public before it even happened. Cole stepped between them. She's not talking to you. Derek ignored him. Maddie, please. They're saying I did this alone, You have to tell them we worked on everything together. Her pulse hammered. He wanted to drag her down with him. Publicly, she lifted her chin. I'm not protecting you anymore. Murmurs rippled around them. Derek's face twisted. You wouldn't have a career without me. The room went silent. Maddie felt something inside her snap, not from pain, but release. I didn't succeed because of you, she said clearly. I succeeded in spite of you. Every camera in the room flashed. And Derek suddenly understood the world wasn't watching him fall. It was watching her rise. The ballroom was still buzzing from Maddie's courage when the event host stepped onto the stage, tapping the microphone lightly. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue with dessert, we have a special announcement from Harrington Development. Cole's jaw tightened. They weren't supposed to present anything tonight. But when the lights shifted, the giant screen behind the stage lit up, displaying Maddie's courtyard design. Her breath caught. The host smiled. This year's signature project will be led by none other than Madeline Rowe. Gasps swept through the room. Cameras turned. People stood to see her better. Cole leaned down, whispering near her ear. You deserve this moment. But Derek? Derek went pale. Then red. Then something between rage and disbelief. She didn't do this alone, he shouted, stepping forward. This is my connection, my project, my deal. The host blinked. Sir, you were not listed on the design team. Derek barked a humorless laugh. Of course I wasn't, because she's using my contacts to steal my career. Someone near the front muttered, Isn't he the one under investigation? Another whispered, He shouldn't even be here. Derek whipped around, eyes wild. You all think I'm the bad guy? You don't know what she's capable of. Maddie felt Cole place a steady hand on her back. Let him talk, he whispered. He's digging his own grave. Just then, the event doors opened. Two sharply dressed individuals walked in, badges visible. The room froze. Federal auditors? Someone whispered. The woman in the navy suit approached Derek calmly. Mr. Rowe, we've been looking for you. Derek stiffened. I'm in the middle of something. I'm afraid you'll need to come with us, she replied. There are urgent discrepancies we must address. Panic shot through his eyes as he turned to Maddie. Tell them, he pleaded. Tell them we ran the accounts together. Tell them you authorized everything. Maddie stepped back, voice steady despite her shaking hands. I won't lie for you. The auditors exchanged a look confirmation. The woman nodded toward Maddie. Mrs. Rowe, you are no longer considered a person of interest. Your attorney submitted evidence clearing you. Derek's jaw fell open. The ballroom erupted into whispers. Cole smiled slightly. Told you we had it handled. Derek lunged forward, but the auditors seized his arms. His voice cracked, echoing through the hall. Maddie, don't do this. You can't let them take me. You owe me. She held her ground. I don't owe you anything, she said softly. You made your choices. Now you face them. The auditors escorted him out as flashes exploded from every corner. And the entire ballroom understood. The woman Derek tried to break had become the one thing he could never stop. Unstoppable. Derek's arrest didn't stay quiet for long. By sunrise, every major business outlet in New York had plastered his face across their homepage. Financial misconduct. Fraudulent transfers. Possible jail time. The same colleagues who once scrambled to shake his hand now distanced themselves, as if his downfall were contagious. But for Maddie, the collapse of Derek's world wasn't a spectacle, it was closure. Painful, necessary closure. She woke early, her baby shifting gently beneath her ribs, as if reminding her that new life was growing even while an old one crumbled. She walked into the living room of the hotel suite to find Cole already on the phone, his voice low and commanding. Yes, no, she won't be implicated. I'll ensure she's protected. When he noticed her, his tone softened instantly. She just walked in. I'll call you back. He hung up and offered her a reassuring smile. The news is everywhere. It's going to get loud. She nodded. I expected it, but Cole stepped closer, studying her carefully. How are you? She let out a long breath. Lighter. Sad, but lighter. It was honest. Derek had hurt her, betrayed her, endangered her, but once he had been someone she loved. Seeing him handcuffed wasn't triumph. It was grief for the life she'd forced herself to survive. Still, a small part of her felt a quiet, fierce satisfaction. He had tried to bury her. Instead, he'd buried himself. Later that afternoon, her lawyer arrived to go over final paperwork. "You're officially cleared," he told her. "The prosecutors have enough to charge Derek alone. And that property your mother left you? It'll be transferred into a secure trust in your name." A trust. Her name. Her future. For the first time since the nightmare began, she felt safe. After the meeting, she stepped onto the rooftop terrace for fresh air. The city spread beneath her like a living map, chaotic, bright, relentless. Cole joined her quietly, leaning on the railing beside her. "You know," he said, eyes on the skyline, "this is only the beginning for you." She laughed softly. "It doesn't feel like a beginning. It feels like the end of something I don't want to go back to." That's exactly what beginnings feel like. A moment passed warm, unhurried. He looked at her, really looked, and there was something unspoken in his eyes. Hope, maybe. Admiration. A promise he wasn't ready to voice yet. Then Maddie's phone buzzed. A news alert. Derek Rowe released on bail. Refuses to comment. Seen leaving station alone. She exhaled slowly. Because his world was falling apart, and for the first time, none of it had the power to touch hers. Maddie thought Derek's silence after his bail release meant retreat. She hoped he would fade into the background, forced to face his consequences while she rebuilt her life far from his chaos. But men like Derek didn't disappear. They resurfaced when they sensed they were losing control for good. It happened 3 evenings later. She had just finished reviewing notes for her firm's upcoming presentation, curled on the sweet sofa with a blanket draped over her legs, when the baby kicked stronger this time. She smiled, placing her hand over the small flutter. Peace was becoming a real thing, not just a dream, until a loud bang rattled the suite door. Cole looked up instantly from across the room, his entire posture sharpening. "Stay here." Maddie's heart dropped. She already knew who it was. Cole approached the door and opened it just enough to block the doorway, just like he did the night Derek first confronted them. Only this time, Derek looked worse. Hollow eyes, disheveled hair, a man not just broken, but desperate enough to be dangerous. "I need to talk to my wife," Derek snapped. Cole didn't move. "She's not your wife anymore." "She's still legally married to me," Derek shouted. "Until paperwork is processed. She's mine, my responsibility. My name is off every investigation," Maddie said from behind Cole, her voice steady. "You don't get to claim me anymore." She stepped into view. Derek's eyes flicked to her belly, and something twisted in his expression. Anger, guilt, possession, maybe all three tangled together. "I did everything for us," he spat. "Everything. I built this life was for our family. And you repay me by humiliating me? Turning everyone against me?" "No," she said quietly. "You did that yourself." Derek's breathing grew heavier. "You think you can walk away clean? After everything? You think they'll let you keep that land? That money? You think he jabbed a finger at Cole, is going to save you?" Before Cole could react, Derek lunged forward. Cole blocked him instantly, pinning Derek's arms. "You need to leave. Now." But Derek's voice broke in a way that was almost a cry. "Maddie, I have nothing left. Nothing. You're the only person who ever believed in me. Please just tell them I didn't mean for this to happen." She felt something inside her shift. Not sympathy, but closure. "I believed in who you pretended to be," she said softly. "Not the man you became when no one was watching." Derek's shoulders slumped. For the first time, he looked small. Cole forced him back toward the hallway, calling security. And as Derek was escorted away, his voice cracked. "You'll regret leaving me." But Maddie didn't flinch. Because she finally understood something he never would. Losing him wasn't regret. It was release. 3 days after Derek was escorted out of the hotel, Maddie received a court notice requesting her presence for an emergency divorce hearing. Her lawyer explained it calmly. He's attempting to gain leverage before sentencing. He wants to claim emotional instability, financial dependence, anything that shifts blame. Old Maddie would have panicked. This Maddie didn't. She walked into the courthouse with her head high, one hand resting gently on her belly, Cole beside her, not touching, not crowding, but present in a way that made her feel fortified rather than overshadowed. Derek arrived moments later, escorted by his attorney. His suit didn't fit the way it used to, shoulders slumped, tie crooked, hair unkempt. He looked less like the man she married and more like the consequences he'd created. When he saw her, Something flickered in his eyes. Not love, not even anger. Fear. Inside the courtroom, the judge reviewed documents quickly, financial records, bank transfers, witness statements, the forged signatures that tied everything together. Maddie watched in silence as her former life, every lie, every manipulation, was sorted into evidence folders. Mrs. Rowe, the judge said, "Do you wish to make a statement?" Her lawyer nudged her gently. Maddie stood, and for the first time, she spoke without trembling. "I stayed in a marriage long after it broke," she said. "I believed loyalty meant sacrificing myself. I believed loving a man meant shrinking so he could feel big. It took losing everything he tried to steal from me to realize the truth. I wasn't the weak one in this marriage. I was the one holding it together." She paused, eyes steady on Derek. "You didn't just betray me, you endangered our child, and I won't let that be forgotten." A faint murmur rippled through the room. Derek's attorney whispered urgently, but Derek shoved him off. "Maddie, stop, you're making this worse." She didn't look away. "No, I'm letting it end." The judge cleared her throat. "Given the overwhelming evidence, this court grants a full protective order for Mrs. Rowe, awards sole custody of the unborn child to her, and accelerates the dissolution of marriage." Derek inhaled sharply. "What? She can't, Maddie. You can't take my child from me." "It was never your child you cared about," she said softly. "Only your image." Security approached as Derek grew agitated. His voice cracked into something raw, almost animalistic. "You'll regret this. You need me." Maddie exhaled a long, steady breath that felt like a lifetime of chains falling away. "I don't need you," she said. "I never did. I just needed to remember who I was before you." As Derek was removed from the courtroom, shouting into the void, Cole touched her elbow gently. "You did it," he whispered. For the first time, she believed him. Spring arrived slowly in New York, softening the sharp edges of winter, warming the air just enough to hint that something better was coming. For Maddie, it wasn't just a new season, it was a new beginning. One she had earned with every scar, every breathless night, every painful truth she had finally faced. 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, she moved into her own apartment overlooking the river. Not Derek's view, not Derek's money, not Derek's world. Hers. The baby's nursery was painted in soft earth tones, sunlight drifting across the wooden floor. Maddie stood in the doorway often, one hand on her belly, imagining the future without fear, without pretending, without shrinking. Her mother's land in New Jersey was officially secured in her name. And investors, real ones this time, not Derek's illusions, were already reaching out, eager to develop the space with her design leading the project. Her firm offered her a higher position. Clients asked for her by name. The industry showcase had sparked something unstoppable. But the biggest shift wasn't professional. It was in her heart. Cole had been a quiet, steady presence throughout every storm, never pushing, never assuming. He showed up with groceries, prenatal vitamins, research articles on back pain, and a softness she'd forgotten existed in men. Still, he never blurred the lines. The choice of what came next was always hers. One warm evening, he invited her to the rooftop garden of his hotel, a place she'd once only visited in passing, never truly seen. Lanterns flickered between planters of lavender and jasmine. The city hummed below, alive but distant. "You didn't bring me up here just for the view," she teased gently. He smiled. "No, I brought you because there's something I want to say and something I want to ask." Her breath caught. "Maddie," he began, voice steady. "You've survived things that would have broken most people, and you didn't just survive, you transformed. You're strong, brilliant, kind, and you deserve a life built on respect, not fear. On freedom, not obligation." She felt her eyes warm. "I'm not asking for an answer tonight or tomorrow," he continued. "But when you're ready, I'd like to build a life with you. Not to replace what you lost, but to honor who you've become." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but they weren't from sadness. They were the release of years she'd spent holding herself together. She placed her hand over his. "Cole, I think I'm finally ready to choose a life that chooses me back." In the distance, the skyline shimmered, no longer a reminder of what she'd escaped, but of everything she was stepping into. And as the city breathed around them, Maddie knew. Her story did not end with betrayal. It began with becoming the woman she was always meant to be. All right, my wonderful friends. So the story has come to an end. And if you are still here with me right now, listening, reading, breathing with this moment, then something in Maddie's journey must have touched your heart in a way only life itself can explain. Let's take a breath together and look at this with the gentlest perspective. Maddie's story reminds us that pain is not the end, it is the turning point. The Stoics had a phrase for this: the obstacle is the way. Marcus Aurelius taught that every hardship carries the seed of our transformation. And isn't that exactly what happened? What tried to break her became the very thing that rebuilt her. When someone betrays us, we often think we've lost everything. But maybe what we lost was never meant to stay. Maybe, as Seneca said, sometimes it takes the whole world falling apart to reveal who we really are. Maddie learned that real strength isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the moment you finally walk away from what hurts and walk toward what heals. And now, my dear friend, if you're still here, maybe a part of you needed that reminder too. You deserve peace, you deserve respect, you deserve a life that chooses you back. If this story reached you, even in the smallest way, give it a like, share it with someone who needs this message, and subscribe so we can keep walking through these powerful journeys together. You're not alone. You're growing just like Maddie.